Warm greetings. Welcome to today's session on women in architecture. The discussion on women in architecture is about understanding the nuances of being women in the profession, and it is placed in the larger purview of being in the diverse fields of built environment for those women who have started their career with architecture education. The session is conducted with the support of Eco Development and Research Cell, a not-for-profit initiative of the environmental design consultant Ahmedabad. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava, and I'm going to be the host for the discussion today. I'm glad that we are doing this conversation and engaging with women in practice as well as in pedagogy of the built environment. The aim of the study is to celebrate the presence and the participation of women in shaping the built environment. The objectives are to learn, to document, and to disseminate their biographical journey who practice, who either do practice, research, education, arts, activism, and a mix of many of these, especially exploring the multi and transdisciplinarity approach to chart their career path. Through this study, the intention is to acknowledge and appreciate the contribution of women in the profession and bring forth the critical points that need to be addressed at individual and institutional level as what makes or breaks or tweaks the career of women architects in India. The study shall implicitly allow us to understand how women maneuver their lives to find the purpose of being in the profession, and which will also explicitly help build role models for the current and future generation. The study is based on the presumption that the profession is heavily patriarchal, and therefore the study is a call to action for all to realize the need for an equitable architectural practice in order to advance towards a sustainable built environment. The methodology applied for the study is called autoethnography, which in simple words means the life journey of the woman who we are documenting, and it's the researcher's pen or the text which is written by them. So it's a biography, but written by others. So the method thus has an informal interaction followed by a semi-structured open-ended interaction, which is this today, and then developing a video series of the interaction, which is available in our social media and YouTube channel. And I'm going to share that in the chat box. And later on, transcribing this interaction into developing a coffee table book for wider dissemination. And I'm really glad that we are able to do this, and we have crossed more than 50 sessions. And for today's discussion, we have Dr. G. Ophylia Vinodhini, and I hope I have pronounced her name right. So thank you so much, Ophylia, for joining us today. And before I invite you for this conversation, allow me to briefly introduce you for the sake of record in this conversation. Dr. Ophylia is an academician, research enthusiast, and a landscape architect. Her PhD is entitled Place Identity Along Highways, Location Choice and Visibility of Identity Lands Elements. She is currently working as Associate Professor at Avni Institute of Design, Kozhikode in Kerala. She has conducted the context capability workshops at schools of architecture in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and also collaborated with researchers in Ukraine. Besides architecture, she engages in societal and spiritual learning classes and activities for the children. Thank you so much, Ophelia. You heard me why the purpose and what the purpose is. And I'm really looking forward to understanding the worries and wisdom by the women, for the women, and of the women in the built environment. And to do that, you are one of our case study today. We really hope to learn about the endeavors of women in general, but particularly you today, through this discipline masterclass. So I hope you are fine that we are recording this conversation and also we are live today. And there are people who are watching you. At the same time, you are fine that we are going to transcribe it and place this conversation as part of the biography and the coffee table book. So if you agree with it, we are going ahead with some very simple questions about life journey. Over to you, Ophelia.
Yeah, hi, Mansee. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity. I look forward to this interesting session. I have been listening to some of the earlier conversations, and it is really so nice of you to bring out the struggles as well as the success stories of women across. And truly appreciate you for this concern and this project that you have taken up. So with that, I also give my consent for the live streaming, recording, and for the further publications that you're about to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ophelia, and I hope I am pronouncing your name rightly. It's not an easy name for me, but I'm sure I'm going to learn pronouncing it rightly over the conversation. Just to let you know, as a disclaimer before we start the conversation here, that as I mentioned, it's a biography or autoethnography as a method. We will be discussing more about Ophelia as a woman in the profession than about architecture. There are very simple architectural questions, but the focus is on you as a woman. So it's a more of a gender study in that sense. So let me take you back some years ago in your high school time, 11th, 12th, and the situation where you were groomed, both family, friends, surroundings. What brought you to architecture?
That's a very interesting question, actually. It is like my dad was in the army, and we have been traveling across states. We lived sometime in Gujarat, sometime in UP, and it went on like that. So whenever we used to go, he used to take us through the buildings. So probably I would say my first inspirations were all the heritage structures, the monuments that we used to visit as kids. So then, when it was my 11th and 12th, I had to decide on the career path. So I was very strong that I'm not going to get into medical or engineering because I was more into the creative side. And so at that moment, I learned that architecture is the stream for me through some of my friends. And then probably I really felt good about joining into architecture. So even there was no preparations like how kids do these days, nata or nothing was done. I just right away went to write the entrance, got into so a little bit of drawing and sketching and some creative thought. So I just gave a try and it did work out. So it was very interesting for me to choose a career which I was interested right from my childhood as well.
Very interesting. And now going to take you very quickly because the deeper questions are going to come later. Right now, it's the warm-up questions. I'm going to also start reflecting what I have experienced so that I can make sense when I'm writing the story. Um, I know from my college time, teachers never made that distinction about being woman or boy or a girl in the classroom. And especially in my time, it was really girls were very dominant in the class. Having said that, when I look back now, I see it's a completely different situation on the ground after from college to practice. But and also there will be cultural difference from North India to Central India to Southern India because I have quite a number of case studies from South India and I see the experiences are very different. I wish to understand from you where did you do your architecture and how was it in the college time? Did you really feel that it is going to be different being a girl or a woman later to be in this profession, or you were just, I mean, like we were like really born in my time. I mean, I can be very frank in college. How was it in your time, in your
Yeah,
class?
actually, I studied in a women's college. So
Hmm.
that was the only women's architecture college in Tanjavur, which had a principal. It was following Periyar's principle and all of
Hmm.
that. So women
Hmm.
empowerment was there at every step that we take over there.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it was literally like you do everything from
Hmm.
shifting your tables to arranging events
Hmm.
you to initiating bigger stuff. Everything was done by women at that particular
Hmm.
point in time in my college.
Hmm.
So when we used to meet other friends from other colleges,
Hmm.
we used to hear stories like the boys used to take care. At that time, it was predominantly like that. They go on a tour, the
Hmm.
boys will help them carry their luggages and all of that.
Hmm.
So here it was everything we were doing. We used to
Hmm.
travel on our own. We used to plan our travels, tours, everything. So I would say that that was a very good foundation for me. Also
Hmm.
to recall that I was part of the team who initiated Women Architecture Association in our college.
Wow.
So it was the batch. Yeah, so we started with that, and that slowly went on to various transformations.
Hmm.
So it was very interesting for us to work on all such things.
Very well put, actually. And I mean, I'm curious because I have no clue how it goes in women's college versus co-education college. But I mean, I can again relate with my time. By the time I was in, final year, we did not have training. But by the time it was final year and all, it was slowly sinking in the head that it is going to be different being a woman, you know. So how was it during your training time? How was it during the final year? What were you cooking up? What next? Practice, job, doing this, doing that, settling. How was it in the final year? I mean, I really wish to capture, especially because you were already trained in the women's college. I'm sure you had much more grooming about being women in the field than we had. We were just thrown out in the world after degree, and you just go and find out that being woman is different. But I'm sure you had much more preparation. So I would like to understand from you, how did you take a decision towards the final year? What next in life?
Yeah, so I did my internship in Chennai under architect Murali.
Hmm.
So he was again an extension of our college, I would say. So he was really into empowering us, and he would give all possible opportunities. It was equal opportunity, I would say, like both
Mhm.
the male interns and the female interns used to get the same opportunities. In
Mm,
fact, I had more site visits, more to construction sites and all of that during that time period.
mm,
So, to be honest, I didn't feel that bias or I didn't feel that inequality during my internship
mm,
because in that particular office, equal opportunities were then given.
mm,
But then I have heard stories from my other friends wherein the
mm.
male interns would be sent to site, the females would be sitting and drafting. So I've heard of such things.
But you
So
didn't face
that's
it, which is a good sign.
yeah, I didn't face it actually. In fact, I was pushed, and in fact, to see once he directly sent me to a bigger client. So
Mm.
wherein I had to talk like an architect, and I really had to do it. I really don't know if back in the back probably he would have told them she's an intern. I'm not sure of that, but I really went with the face, and I had to discuss the project and all of that. So I really had good opportunities in my internship as well.
Mm,
So
mm,
that was not really the time, but I would say that
mm,
probably post architecture undergrad education would have
mm,
been the time wherein I realized that whether I should get into practice or whether I should get into research. Then I started slowly realizing the difficulties in setting up your own practice. In college, we are three friends. We were like, okay, once we are done, we are going to set up our firm. We are going
uh,
to name it. This is our logo. We planned everything.
mm,
But then, probably once you pass out of your
mm,
education, then you realize that is not as easy as it seems to be. There are things which come in. One of them got married, other one left to and abroad for an higher education, and you are here. So what do you do? So
mm,
all that thing pops up at that particular
mm,
period in time.
mm, mm,
So that was the time I slowly started realizing that it's
mm.
easier for men to actually pursue their dreams more than women. We are
Mm.
tied up with our families, their aspirations, and all of that.
So how did you take a decision? You put a very interesting point here, because it's good to see that from the college time, you were already looking at architectural practice as a collaborative effort, whereas most of the architects struggle to collaborate, and they because we are taught very differently to practice individually, and that probably I personally feel also is the genesis of developing a lot of egoistic approach or elitist approach in architecture. But how did you then take a call for yourself, knowing that your partners are not going to be there around? And what did you do eventually then in the initial career time?
So at that time, I was motivated by one of my friends
Mm,
to get into landscape architecture, and it was the time my family was also pressurizing me to get into work because
mm,
they have spent for the 5 years of education.
absolutely.
So, and my dad wanted me to be confident and
Mm,
have my own money. So he was like, get into work, get into practice, or get
mm,
into an office. So he
mm,
was in that particular mode. So, but then one of my friends said that if you do your master's,
mm,
probably that would add value to whatever practice or research that
mm,
we'll be doing in future.
mm,
So it was at that time that I gave a try and got into landscape architecture at SAP Chennai. So, and then it went on. So over the course of masters, I probably discovered my interest or passion for research. So it was then that I started writing a little bit, reading a little bit, looking into various research projects. And my master's thesis was on ecological management of wetlands. So slowly I started getting into that particular world. So in childhood, I always had the aspiration of writing a book. So I really wanted to write a book. So then as I grew up, I really wanted to research and write a book. It didn't
Of
want,
course,
I
you
didn't
have,
want it to
you
be
know
like,
by now. You know by now
yeah.
that you cannot write a book without research.
Yeah, by now I know that. So it is like that slowly pushed me on, and I have very good seniors and mentors. It's like I would say that like an ecosystem. So I was never an individual. At every time I had mentors, I grew with very proper mentorship, I would say, at necessary steps in my life and stages. And some of my seniors like really pushed me to do my PhD also later. So as I was doing masters, I was parallelly getting the motivation to do my PhD that I should be doing it, I should be doing it. So it gradually got into you, it sinked into you. And slowly that is how my career was shaped because I did not get into practice. So it started with undergraduation, followed by post graduation. Then I got into teaching. So I would say teaching practice perhaps or academic practice.
Yes.
And then further it went on with research parallelly going on. So that was how the entire
So,
journey shaped us.
yeah. So, did your PhD come much later, or you were like in the early teaching time only you enrolled yourself and then let the PhD happen slowly? Or did you take a dedicated time for PhD?
Okay,
People
so
like us, I mean, I left everything and I did my PhD, and it's the best time of my life, you know?
okay, so I would say that it was more of a multitasking for me because I was
Yeah.
getting married, I was getting into a new job, and very soon I had my kid, and with the baby in hand, enrolled for a PhD. And I was also working in a new institution since inception. So the institution was also shaping up, PhD was shaping up, family was shaping up, and the baby was also growing. So it was a
How
lot of
was it?
struggle.
How were you managing the time slot? Everyone has 24 hours. So how was it with Ophelia?
Yeah, at this point, there's one more interesting thing which I have to definitely say is my husband, who's also a landscape architect. We are an
Okay.
architect couple, and both of us enrolled into PhD at the same time.
Okay.
So it was like supporting each other at the same time. But of course, there are few struggles as a woman, like how the way you work, the way your husband works, the way the family works, their
And the way
aspirations.
child demands, and the way child demands.
So I would say that it was a very interesting part of my life. It went on till 8 years. I took 8 years to complete my PhD. So the 8 years of time was one of the most interesting part of my life. I would definitely call it that way. So I never had a chance to breathe or take a vacation, or it was like one after the other,
Good.
one after the other, or
Yeah,
parallel
good. You
life.
say interesting time, and you put. I mean, you know, you really tell the struggle as interesting time. I think that's a very good way to put it as well, especially when you're looking back now as a reflection. You know. Yeah. So 8 years of PhD, and also I'm sure your other half also took a very similar time because you were sailing the similar kind of boat, and by the time the child also grew. But just to understand from you, and again I'm seeing that as a cultural difference between North, Central, and Southern India, uh, because women have that additional burden, even baby bearing. I mean that's a natural process you cannot share, but rest of the things can be shared, you know, whether it is professional or family or social matters. And you may choose not to answer this question also, but it is up to you. But did you really went through that superwoman syndrome which we all carry on our head and shoulder, that I can do everything, and I mean everything will be all right, and I have time for everything, and everything will be perfect? Were you carrying that syndrome, or responsibility and taking charge of everything, or was your other half or family members were really contributing to the overall growth in those times.
Okay. So, right from childhood, we are always taught to succeed in things. You
Huh.
have to succeed. If you are teaching,
Very
you
good,
do it well.
nicely put, because I consider
Yeah.
success itself is a masculine term. We are going to talk about it.
Okay.
Huh? Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it is a baby, like being a mother, you want to be really good at being a
Hmm.
mother. So if you want to be a daughter-in-law, you really want to be a good daughter-in-law,
That
a
is
good
where the
wife.
syndrome is. We carry it
So you
out.
really, yeah, push yourself and you really want to do things. But at one point, you also, like, I actually understood that I cannot do everything on my own. That's
Hmm.
where this entire ecosystem actually works.
Hmm.
So that is where I should say that I was blessed with a very good family. We lived with our in-laws, with my
Hmm.
husband's parents, and they actually helped us a lot. Like I was free to ask for help. This is
Hmm.
something which I would like to tell everyone also, because you should know when to ask for help. So
Yes,
it's
if you
not
don't
that,
ask, people don't know.
yeah, they
Absolutely.
don't know. Yeah, so if I have to prepare for a class or if I have a seminar that day, my mother-in-law would I just have to tell her, Ma, I have this work today, so can you help me with this? She'll
Huh.
be instantly doing it. Many a times she'll look at me that I'm in the system and she'll start preparing the food.
Huh.
So there was that kind of an understanding which really helped. Otherwise, I don't think I would have traveled all these parallel lines at a time. It
I'm
wouldn't have been possible.
sure it's
And
extremely difficult.
yeah, and also I had equal and more support from my spouse as well. So
Hmm.
it was more like we were sharing. So if I had to teach him, he would help us to travel or commute or get things for the house. Or so it was like an equal sharing. There was a kind of role realization. I would say we were not
Did
getting
it
into
come
the other's
naturally?
domain.
Did it come naturally? Is it because of the upbringing of the family, both sides, or you really had to make an effort to make everybody realize
Yeah.
that I am not a superwoman, in other words?
Yes, yes. No, actually, I think it was part of the upbringing of the family.
Yes.
So he already had a sister, so he was very much aware of
Yes.
how much I can
A woman's
handle, or
life. Hmm.
yeah, how much I've been trained. And being the second child in my home, even I was pampered. So
Huh.
I did not come into the family knowing how to cook, how to clean. So I was not aware of everything. So they were very patient with me. They gave me enough and more time to actually get into the family life, which I think every girl actually deserves. So that
Absolutely.
time was, yeah, that time was really needed for me to learn things. I think even now I'm learning. It's an
Of course.
ongoing process though.
Yes.
So that sharing was definitely there, and it was part of the upbringing. And even if I failed, or at times when I get anxious, there was always a constant support and kind of assurance that I was getting that I'll be able to handle this. There are times when I really wanted to quit my job. There was
Oh.
there was time when I wanted to quit my research.
Hmm.
So at that time, the family support was very much required for me. They said that you can do this, you will be able to do this. We'll support you in this.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was
Very
constant.
important. Huh? It's very important that there are people who are making you feel that they are there when you need them, because many a times we get hesitant and all. So it's the whole idea of blending and balancing personal and professional life, maybe has a I will say strategy, and not that you plan for it, but I wish to understand from you, because for over the years you may have seen many of your friends who have either same profession spouse or a different profession spouse. What is, in your opinion, really works? Do you think having a spouse from the same field matters, or um, I'll keep it matters,
Okay.
because then the positive and negative both can be understood. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are both. There are both positives and the other side also. So, in the positive side, like we were working in the same school of architecture. So, day and night we used to discuss about the school. Like there are times when even until 2, 3 at night you discuss on the college, how to improve it,
Talking,
how,
talking,
what do you do.
talking,
Yeah, lot
eating,
of
sleeping.
conversation.
Oh my, yes, I can relate that.
So one could easily understand what the other is going through,
Mm.
and one need not explain. So it was like that. But on the other side, I used to feel like even if like it's on a lighter note though. So even if calling for a workshop or calling for a lecture, they would be like just telling the partner. So they'll say, okay, now you can also please convey our regards to ma'am.
Hmm.
We invite her also. So
The invitation will
sometimes you
come
get that.
come come to the man mostly.
Yeah, so kind of a free attachment. I would be like just making fun of it. So am I a free attachment? So kind of that.
एक के
But
साथ
that's
एक
just
free.
on a lighter.
In Hindi we say no, एक के साथ एक free.
So then I recently learned that many architect couples are facing the same thing actually.
Oh
So
yes,
they
I mean
invite
I got
their
out of this bhabhi syndrome, working on every project. Then you go to site with your other half. I have a landscape architect, other half, um, and you go there, and your clients, with all due respect, with good intention, they put you in the bhabhi category, and they make me sit outside in the waiting room, and they are inside the cabin and discussing the project and drawings which I made in the office. And it took me
okay,
some time to realize it, but then
okay,
anyway, it's not my story, so I can completely relate with it. And as you said, many women face the same, but I mean, I call it the bhabhi thing in my case. All good clients, with good intentions.
yeah,
They want to give me the best treatment without realizing that they are not doing the best what I wish to. But anyway,
yes,
you were talking about you know that there are many people who have really shaped and have inspired or supported you in the time when you really needed them. I would like to understand from you some of your inspiration, both at a personal level as well as professional level, who have influenced your work, your philosophy of the profession. And if you would like to add few things about those things, it would be nice to hear that.
okay. Would you like? Can I also tell their names? Like, is it
Of
allowed?
course,
Or
if you like to, it's up to you. Yeah. It's good to
okay,
acknowledge people, I mean, it's always good. Yeah.
yeah. Because I personally feel when I joined teaching, I did not know how to teach. Like, we don't have a teacher training program or a
It's a
faculty
big,
training
a big
program in
problem in
architecture.
architecture. Huge problem in
Yeah.
architecture. We are not going through teachers training program.
Exactly. So that is where the role of these mentors actually shaped me.
Mm, mm,
So the one of the institutions wherein I worked, architect Vijay Kumar, architect Ramalingam, architect Belinda, they were more like they were constantly looking on to how to shape the faculty, how to work with them, and how to get the best out of them, how to help them to reach. So there
mm,
was like this institution wherein you have lot of handholding. So even
mm.
for 2, 3 years later, when I was a senior, like senior in the sense, like more than 10 years of experience, I
Yes.
was able to guide my juniors also. So
Mm,
it went on like that. So that was passed through. And
mm,
wherein we had mentors, like they gave us opportunities to work with Professor P.V.K. Rameshwar. So I had handled around 5 UD studios with him. So where
mm,
he was the mentor, then Professor Harimohan Pillai and Professor Chaya, and they brought in all these people. So
mm,
wherein like I have always felt that I didn't study set or whatever. I couldn't meet them. But
mm,
while being trained under them as a faculty, having constant sessions of nurturing and how you
mm,
really have to get into this profession and all of that. So that was what I think truly shaped, gave you the courage even to go and stand before students, to deliver a lecture. And
mm,
also right now I work on student-centric methods.
mm,
So what do students like? Like maybe it's workshops or hands-on, or should I change even that for the present generation? So
mm,
constantly working on various pedagogical things. So that was one side. On the other side, I had very good seniors like Dr. Kalechelvi, Dr. Kannamma. So they are all like real good. Dr. Kalechelvi is like an epitome of positivity, I would say. You take a very badly written paper, she would say, wow, wonderful, you've done great.
mm,
She'll help you to move through, and she'll help you to go to the next step, and she never discourages people that way. So she was one major inspiration for me to do PhD. So
mm,
while I was doing my master's, she was doing her MS and PhD.
mm.
So there was a constant thing that, okay, you should do your PhD. Okay, you should do your PhD. So she, whenever I meet her, she used to tell it to me. So it
I do
went
the same, by the way. I'm always looking for people who would like to do PhD and just holding them and trying to convince them that you should do PhD. And I'm sure you now know why it is important to do PhD.
Definitely,
Life
definitely. That has
changing, huh?
made a
Life changing.
huge difference. That makes a huge difference in the way you think also, in the way you look at
Absolutely.
things,
You look at
the way
life
you
and the world.
observe.
Absolutely.
So that was really interesting. And also to work with Dr. Harimohan Pillai. So during our PhD days, like he would be like the days when we are low and we are down and when we are really questioning ourselves, are we in the right way? Should we really do this?
Mm.
So then he shared his own life experiences. There are very few mentors who
Mm.
teach you with their own lives.
Absolutely.
So absolutely blessed to be with
Mm.
such kind of people and also with people who are very strict like Professor PVK Rameshwar. Like
Yes.
I need it, I want it. I have tried, like even being a faculty, I have tried because he used to make me sit day and night for 3 days without food, without sleep, and get this done. You have to get the course plan ready for the studio in 2 to 3 days. That's
Uh-huh.
it, and that has to be of certain quality, certain thing. The outcome that he expects should come
I
out of
can
it.
imagine being his
So,
student. I mean, I think I escaped not being his colleague because I was just his student. But
so
it is really
I would
nice to have
say,
them.
yeah, this grilling as well as this nurturing, as well as this
Yeah,
handholding, all of this is equally required for someone to really be shaped up in life.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
So, just to continue this question to your memorable projects or, both research or your publications and all, which you would like to record here and how that really gave you a sense of, achievement. And I know most of our projects we feel very, happy and contented, but I'm sure there are some we cherish also. And there are some from where we learn as well. I mean, I'm always counting the failed projects as well because there's so much to learn. But just to understand from you what kind of work you really find, very cherishing, as well as some kind of work which we have to do in our, profession, which are very challenging being a woman.
yeah. So, at this point, I would like to share my experience of the collaborative research paper, which I
Mhm.
worked with researchers from Ukraine. So it
Yes.
was that time when like I did not have research methodology in my UG and PG. So in my
Mm.
PhD, I was just like thrown into the well kind of a situation. So I had to learn and I had to do that. So at that time, I found them in ResearchGate. I wrote to them. They were
Mm.
so kind enough. Like only one of them knows English actually. The
Mm.
others they write in their own Ukrainian language.
Mm.
So they collaborated with me, and any paper that I write, that we wrote one publication in the first stage. So in which they would very patiently look at every single line, give
Mm.
the comments, have the conversation. So to be honest, I learned how to write a research paper from them.
Mhm.
So I would say that they are only during the publication, while asking them for their credentials, because we have to write all the authors,
Yes.
then I realized that I was working with 4 doctors. But
Okay.
never at any point they showed that they have all completed PhD, or they were so humble throughout the
Mm.
process, throughout the conversation. So that was very highly humbling experience for me also,
Mm.
to learn how much this mentorship beyond language, beyond a nation, beyond a country, like how it can still work out. We always think that we have a community, we live within our own circle and all of that. The moment one tries to step out, I felt that was a there's a huge world out there. You don't have to
Absolutely.
really
Uh,
stop
we
yourself
should
or
not
have
bound
these
ourselves with
boundaries.
the especially nationalism. We have to work more on humanity and look beyond. The world is ours. Oh, very well put.
So,
So, any kind of projects which you find still very challenging to engage, or what kind of projects really
uh,
or challenges you?
right now, I'm more into academics and
Okay.
into research. So I'm not getting into field-based practice, but
Okay.
constantly being associated into the urban design and rural
Yes.
studios. So
So
I
you
feel
field work.
community-based projects
Yes.
are more challenging They need
Mm.
more people
Yes.
participation and how you connect.
Yes.
One such project I would like to recall is the Kadalur floods, and we
Mm.
did a rural studio just a week after that, and
Kadalur,
with Dan
Tamil Nadu.
Academy,
Kadalur, Tamil
Tamil
Nadu.
Nadu.
Mm.
Yeah. So there was a lot of agitation. We have gone there with 40 students and three faculties, and the villages would not let us into the village. We have
Mm.
booked for a 1 week of stay to stay with them, work with them, and all of that. Nothing is working. So
Mm.
at that point, you realize the reality, and
Mm.
you try and see how to get it done. And by the last day, they were reluctant to let us go. So they actually learn to be part of us, sharing their heart out, and all
It
of
takes
that was
time.
happening.
It takes time in trust
Takes
building with the
time.
community. Absolutely. Very well put. And especially when you are going with young students and all, they are always more skeptical. What are you going to do with this work and so on and so forth. So just to understand the academic environment also from you, because you have more experience in that environment, what are the physical and let's say psychological aspects of women that are at stake in academic environment for that matter? I mean, again, it's a cultural difference, a huge cultural difference between North and South. But I'm sure you reckon that there is a serious issue being women in the profession, but it may be less or more in depending on the region and the context as also institution and individual for that matter. But what is your experience of these things?
Mansi, at this point, I would say it's not just north and south, even between Tamil Nadu and Kerala, because I worked in Tamil Nadu and now in
Yes,
Kerala, I see a lot of cultural difference.
yes.
There was a bit of handholding and they help you to grow, and that was a different kind of a receptive, a kind
Mm,
of a different environment. Whereas here, you're pushed to do everything. So
mm,
it is like they give you equal and more freedom. Women are very brave. They're given the courage. Like after joining Avni, I have had lot of opportunities. I've been here for less than 2 years, but within these 2 years, they have given me enough and more opportunities to work in various sectors. So
mm.
I've been part of the gender development cell. I've been part of
Uh,
the internal complaints. I've been part of the building voices, building alliances lecture series. So
mm,
it is like the things I would have hesitated or the things I wouldn't have wanted to do or
mm,
stopped myself or questioned if I would be able to do this.
mm.
Slowly, I feel that there is enough and more space just by crossing one border.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of opportunities. The cultural difference, of course, is there. I feel it is all about how an individual takes it to shape themselves better. So
Mm,
that is where it actually. So what I've been doing is making use of every opportunity that comes to learn and to grow. So if
mhm.
one is positive, then I think all these opportunities will really help.
Yeah. So there are also situations when I mean, and you can give by example the response to it. There are situations when we think that, hmm, I'm at a wrong place. Maybe I don't know what kind of situation they are there, but you can interpret it and explain. Or there are situations when you think, this discussion is going on, or this is going on. Being a woman in this position, I can offer more, and it's good that I am there. Have you really faced such kind of situations, or if you would like to narrate something like this?
One issue I would feel I face is safety.
Hmm.
So yeah, so if you want to work long hours or if you want to stay back in the evening,
Hmm.
so one is safety, another one is the work-life balance, your
Hmm.
responsibility of managing home at the same
Hmm.
time. So
Absolutely.
there are times when my colleagues would stay back till 10, 11 for an event or
Yeah,
a
the male
preparation.
colleagues especially.
Yeah, wherein I had to rush back home by 5 o'clock. I would also want to stay back. I would also want to work with them. I also like to see the events shaping up and all of that. But I have a family at home to feed. I have to go back, or my son might have something else to do. He might need me to buy some things. So at that time, I always feel that why am I not able to extend a little more? So also the issue of safety. So if there is no vehicle or if there is, I cannot go back home safely or it might be too late, then I hesitate to stay back for that
Hmm.
particular event, program or whatever. So unless otherwise, like I have been doing. many workshops across colleges in Tamil Nadu and Kerala.
Mm.
So there are times when the accommodation was not safe. So, or I felt not safe because it was in the middle of a forest kind of an environment. So it could have been. So safety, I feel, yes, of course, is a major concern. That is one. The other one is having to sacrifice few things to take time for your family. So at the
Absolutely.
same time, one cannot through fully get into a professional side. So there is always that balance which is required.
Trade-off, yeah, and the balance which we have to decide. You put a very interesting question. And when I was young and working in more office environment, not as a full-timer but also as a external person, I used to make this point and fight with my peer group as well as my elders in the organizations. And I'm talking about SEP, by the way, where I have worked in the early career. And I still stand by my words that why should men work more? And especially when I'm doing this research and I'm studying more and more, I have this question even stronger today because we have more man-made disasters. The cities are screwed up because there are more men working more hours. So I have become like a very nerdy, nasty person. With age also, you become very stubborn as well. No, so I remember 30 years ago, I was making this point that, okay, everybody should work for 4 hours, sorry, in the morning, 4 hours in the evening. Okay, afternoon, you can take some break because in Gujarat, we have that longer break required. And people should not be working for more hours. I remember from Sangat to Sept, these men and boys were working for like 12 hours, 16 hours. And I'm like, we have to go home. And it's not that I would like to stay back, as you were mentioning. I was questioning why men should work more. And that was not taken in a very positive way. And I still stand with that point that men should not work more. Nobody should work more because even men need to balance family and life because they are always focusing on, sorry, family and profession. They are always focusing, most of them are focusing on profession, and that's unfair. And what is happening, I mean, look at the cities how they are. So that brings me to my next question, which is very interesting and also tricky. And that's also a question about, you have to imagine a situation. Imagine, and by number, there are more men practitioners in the country. So I'm using that as a basis. Imagine this was completely different in our setting in India. There were more women practitioners, more women famous architects, more projects to women. And of course, there were also men doing things just like we do. We are also existing. It's unfortunate that our existence is not realized by the society, starting from many a times by family, friends, and then the society at large. And I want to put a disclaimer here, not that I would like to have that situation in our society that all women in our profession. I'm doing a similar research on water as well, by the way. And I don't wish to have a day when it is all women leading architecture profession. I am making this point to reach a point where there are equal participation, acknowledged and appreciated. I still feel there are many women working in the profession, but uh, they are not acknowledged and appreciated, because of which we are doing this whole effort as a research. But just to understand from you, it's like, you want to achieve 100% marks and then you barely get 70 or 60% marks. So imagine a situation if most of the famous architects of the country and practicing architects were women in the past or in future if this situation arises. What do you think cities and neighborhoods will look, and will they look different or will they be same as we see today? What are going to be the changes in the built environment?
I feel a lot of changes will happen. For example, if we take the design of a kitchen.
Huh.
So I've always quoted this example to students. So
Hmm.
kitchens, modular kitchens, they started like designed by men initially. So if Indian women were always used to sit on the ground
Oh,
and
I
sit on the
still find
floor
it
and cook.
in my own house.
Yeah, they used to sit down and cook. At that time, they did not have this hip pain or knee pain or whatever. Now that you keep standing and cooking in the kitchen, and then immediately you have to get to work, then you have to rush. This knee pain and all of that is like
Oh,
very usually it's happening. So I feel the way the streets are designed, the way the housing sector entirely will change if women start designing all the housing projects.
mm,
Because I feel there is a little more sensitivity when women look at a house and the way they occupy a house or the way they treat a house more than men occupying,
mm,
or because you
mm,
yourself said that they stay long hours in the
mm.
workplace. So many times it has been like women have spent more time at home also. So I feel though it has to be equal participation from both. Recently, I've been seeing colleagues and families where the work at home is also equally shared. They
I mean,
support
I
each
would
other,
like to have
they
that
cook
situation even
together,
at my home.
yeah, they clean together, they wash together. So I've been seeing families which are working that way also.
Yeah, it's
So, but
changing.
I
It's
feel the
changing.
sensitivity, yeah, it's exchanging, it's developing. We are in the transition period. I would rather
Transition.
call it that
Uh,
way.
This is an
So,
addition, contribution to the transition.
yeah, so in that way, probably the way women having the sensitivity of being a mother, being a wife, being a daughter-in-law, so playing multiple roles in the society, as well as the kind of education that women are getting today, definitely it will have a huge transformation in the way the cities are built. I have always appreciated Jan Gill's work. So, wherein he looks at streets to be more humane, the eye
Hmm,
level perception, and all of that. I
hmm.
feel the details that women can see are much better. Like they can see more details and they can design a much better built environment. So that is definitely there. But at the same time, I feel it has to be a 50-50 kind of
Yeah. But to
situation.
reach there,
Absolutely.
that's why I made this disclaimer. I also would not like, because many a times I have gone for jury in southern part of the country and I found the class is full of girls and
Yes.
only few boys. And that's also an equally uncomfortable situation, But I mean, when I was studying, we were equal number of boys and girls. But when I look back now, the number of people practicing and number of people teaching, there's a serious skewedness in there. And that's why we need to understand that there is something more than education and profession which is working in this whole game, where women are really not acknowledged and appreciated. I can share with you some things later on, but I think an important part is that, women themselves are also not uh, taking that charge that their work is worth, and probably they are too busy in their own lives, and that's also the matter. But rightly put, that there will be more focus on details, there will be more focus on, and you may raised a very important point on kitchen, because when my kitchen was getting built, I was really fighting to have a on the floor cooking approach. And the point I was really laughed about is, come on, we are modern people, we have to behave more cultured and so on and so forth. And by the way, I'm sitting on the floor right now, and I work on sitting on the floor, even at office and from work. From home, I have an office setup, and I think it's an extremely important way of, keeping healthy. Just a very small point, toilets, and you rightly mentioned public spaces, public buildings for that matter will look very different. So this question is to really make also be aware that when we design, we need to keep these things in mind. Or if it is a collaborative work, please listen to the woman, because that's also extremely
Yeah.
important. That also brings me to my penultimate question on, because you are working on this gender aspect in the college, and you have been in different colleges, what do you think, what kind of still issues come to you as to resolve in terms of gender, in terms of women? And I'm not denying that fact that men and boys do not face problem. It's just that this research is focusing on women and girls. So what kind of issues do women teachers and girls bring to you in this aspect, personal, professional? Do they face any kind of do they bring you some issues?
Uh, predominantly, most of it evolves around safety. So
Okay.
whether it is in person or whether it is now that social media is there, online is there. So there
Hmm.
are a lot of issues on based on that also. So it is like the identity theft, or it could be like sharing your data outside. So things like that do pop up. And many a times it's more of a question of trust is what I feel affects women. So
Hmm.
when it is their own closer relations, or
Hmm.
when it is a person known to them who have been with them, that is when women actually break down.
Hmm.
So of late, not just here, we have been seeing across the country and lot of issues popping up
Serious problem.
everywhere.
It
So
hurts.
irrespective of profession,
Yeah.
so
And
it could happen on
psychologically, it's a lot
site,
of
or
burden.
yeah, it could happen on site, or it could happen anywhere for that matter. So most of the issues actually move around this question
Hmm.
of safety. How safe are we in our public places? How safe are we when we go out to places where we are not familiar with,
Hmm.
for case of work or for case of travel or for education or to share our information or whatever. So then I think predominantly it is based around safety, because how much ever you work, how much ever you earn, how much ever you learn, ultimately one needs to be safe. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so most of the concerns are around this one particular thing, I would
So
say.
I'm asking a question out of my structure, but just to understand, and probably in my future conversations, I'm going to bring this up because it's extremely disturbing to see what's going on in the country. We are almost becoming a epidemics problem in the country. But just to understand from you, the way we have been investing heavily on empowering women, do you think we have really invested enough on making men more gentlemen? Because I mean, personally, I have serious problem that we are not talking enough about men. I mean, I am also realizing in my own research, but when we talk about safety, I think we have invested a lot in making women safe, but have we invested enough to making men more gentlemen? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I would say that probably the workplaces that I have worked, I have probably met the most gentlemen ever possible, because it was extremely safe to work with them, extremely safe to travel with them, to go on case studies. So all these years of my teaching career, it's truly a blessing to not have met a man who's
Hmm.
trying some other things. But however, I feel the concern is not addressing the right group of men who are actually indulging in these stuff. It's
Absolutely.
not it's not every man is bad, because
Of course not.
we
Of
have
course not.
enough and more good
But
friends, and
the data says
yeah,
90% of the violence against women happens by the people they know. So it's not by
yeah,
strangers. But what
yeah,
we hear from the media is by the strangers. It's we don't hear because women are not reporting many a times. But
yeah.
anyway, we can't change that aspect.
So I feel that it's very important to address this concern locally, regionally, to the right population that we are looking at. I understand it's very difficult to identify, but right now, I feel a lot of effort has been made from schools. So the
Hmm.
school in which my son is studying, so he has been like, they have sessions, they have training programs, they have awareness programs. So the education starts right away from school.
Hmm.
And also at this point, I would like to quote that in Avni recently we had a session on menstrual hygiene and sexual health, so by a gynecologist. And that was truly a session of awareness, I would say, wherein
Hmm.
we really felt that even at, if you had missed at college, school, at least you learned at college. So it covered various aspects, starting from menstrual hygiene, starting from sexual health, starting from what are all the issues which is happening across the country. So we had a very around 1.5 hour session with a gynecologist where she shared everything very honestly and very truthfully. It's not
Hmm.
like that hidden education that we have in schools.
Hmm.
So I feel such open conversations are very much required. So I truly sincerely appreciate Avni for giving that kind of an opportunity for us to conduct such a kind of a program in a larger forum. we had more than 150 students and faculty who were attending that particular session.
Hmm.
So I feel these kind of programs are equally and more important in all places of education. So
Absolutely.
slowly things will change. People are changing and things will change.
Hmm.
Many times I feel it is the negligence of not knowing the side effects of what one is doing. So
Absolutely.
I feel it's
That's where
also that.
education is important. That is where, if not the formal education, but awareness around it is extremely important. And when I read more and more, I find that again, the onus goes back to the mother, how they are grooming their son and so on and so forth. But anyway, that is for another discussion, but it's just that it came out because I think while women are getting more educated and empowered, we are also seeing a rise in violence against women in all kinds of violence. And as I mentioned, 90% comes from the known people, But keeping that aside, we'll do the discussion some other time on it. And I'm not an expert in that aspect. Yeah, so I should leave it. But that brings me to the last question also. And you know that architecture profession is a unfortunately niche profession where the whole country is developing left, right, and center. And many people don't even know what is our profession and what this profession can bring to the table or to the city or to the building. I would like you to really give a message to the younger generation why they should join architecture. Also, it is a good promotion for not only the profession but for the institute. What can they gain out of this profession?
I just have two words. One is to build resilience and to build advocacy for diversity. So I feel architecture is a perfect blend wherein it helps you to build this resilience which today's society
Hmm.
needs, the
Hmm.
younger generation needs to thrive in the
Hmm.
society.
Hmm.
So probably that is very important. So in order to build resilience, this 5 years of architectural education will really train an individual up. At the same time, also promoting advocacy for diversity, wherein you meet people from different cultures, from different societal backgrounds, and you also go for enormous number of case studies wherein you meet people from the society, from various sectors. So you really learn how to live. So I feel it's not just a course for education, but also to learn how to live your life. So that
Absolutely. It
way,
would be a fulfilling profession. That's true.
yeah. So it's a highly fulfilling profession, a satisfactory profession. And at present, the immediate concern is how relevant are we being to the society. So this
Hmm.
is what I have been adding in all my discussions with students, even with
Hmm.
thesis students or dissertation students or whatever. So it's not about just writing few things which gets on the books, but
Yes.
how relevant are we going to be to the society and how are we going to make the change that we wish the
Hmm.
society to have. So probably that is where I think we have to step up, open up, and in that, Mansri, the work that you are doing is properly, perfectly fitting in line, reaching out to all the women out there and trying to hear their stories. Many a times, women just need a listening ear. So that is equally important. And many times when we have conversation with our female friends, just hearing that this is common, this is also happening in their lives is sometimes okay. Otherwise, many times we feel, is it happening only to me? So
Yes.
not
That
being
is
in
also the
isolation,
reason. Hmm.
yeah, not being in isolation and trying to reach out to people, architecture actually gives you opportunities for all of this.
Yeah,
So that
absolutely.
way, it is.
Yeah, we also realized, by the way, my success rate of conducting this interaction is barely 10%. Let me tell you that. So a lot of cancellations, lot of no response, and lot of skepticism. And then I also understand the woman, and at the same time, it also helps me to understand why we have been lagging behind. Because one is maybe a very good professional or a very good academician, but if they don't see the importance of role model building, because when I grew up, I had no name other than Didi contractor in my kitty to look up to, and Didi contractor was almost inaccessible in my understanding. In my understanding, she was not actually. But I thought that, oh my God, she's like a god and she's so big. I mean, she may not take me, and so on and so forth. So we have not really invested enough to create role models. That is one thing which I feel in architecture it is required. And this is a very small effort towards doing it. And Madhvi has done a bigger work on, Madhvi Desai ma'am has done bigger work on it. Anyway, that brings me to a very simple question related to this conversation today. And that's the last question from my end. Trust me. What should the younger generation keep in mind if we want to reach a situation in a society where we are talking about engendering the society, where we are really seeing equal opportunities, equal dignity, yeah, and so on and so forth? What are the things which younger generation should keep in mind? And I'm talking about younger generation in general. It's not about a kind of a sexuality. What, in your opinion, I'm sure because you are going through all students, interaction on a regular basis, very simple tips which people can keep in mind so that we can start moving towards and we can start and move faster for that matter. There is a transition, but we are faster in attaining gender equality or equity. So your
Uh,
feedback or this is your message to younger generation as well.
I just have 2 points here. One is don't lose your curiosity because as child wives, what we have been asking these questions.
Hmm.
So the more curious we are, the more it is sure that we'll be innovating new ways, discovering new things,
Hmm.
having a good life. All of that will happen. Everything will fall in place. So having the curiosity is something I feel is very important. Another one is not stopping yourself. I see many a time students stopping themselves that I can't do this, or
Hmm.
this is not my cup of tea, or I will not be able to do this. Will I do this? So
Hmm.
I see of late many students just trying to stop themselves. So they
Hmm.
don't put
Do
just
you
that
mean the girl
little extra.
students? Is it about the girl students?
It's in both genders. So it is not just girls these days.
Uh,
So yeah,
how
so there
does
are
that
people
help in engendering it? How does that help bringing gender equality then?
so especially at Avni, I don't see this kind of bias because
Huh.
we treat students as students. That's it. So there is no particular inclination towards girls or boys or
Absolutely.
whatever. So in that way, this the way you treat them, the way you converse with them, and the way they respond, I feel this engendering can naturally happen.
Yes,
So
there has to be a natural process. Absolutely.
For example, I would like to quote one example here. So here we have our head Soundini. So she
Hmm.
makes it sure that there is equal number of jurors, male and female. So
Hmm.
there are times
Very
when we have
simple things, huh?
really
Very simple things.
looked for people like you don't get them. Like you say, 10% of success rate. We have also faced similar situations wherein they will not be ready to travel or ready to commute, or they feel it's little longer for them, or they have other commitments. So, but however, we try and see and find equal number of jurors.
Hmm.
So there has been like the recent research symposium, even which we conducted. We made it sure to bring out these people, and it was truly what to say interesting to see that there are so many people out there who have not come into the limelight because
Hmm.
they are just hiding in themselves in their own worlds. So I feel that equality in terms of number participation should start, and then slowly this will eventually happen as a natural
Absolutely.
phenomenon.
And we are already running a campaign around it. I'm sure you know Monolita is also one of the person who is working hard. And we are also trying to really make it a point to tell at every platform that this is required. It's a simple way when people start accepting them. But thank you so much for your candid, conversation and opening your heart to us. And that brings an end to questions from my end. But it is also a time to open it up to you. If you have any question for me pertaining to this conversation, this research, or in general, this is a good time you may ask.
Okay. Probably I was curious to see how you started this. So probably many would have asked you this, but
Same question, very similar question often. Why this
yeah.
research and how did you start? And I mean, it was in my head for quite some time when I started my career at Doshi's office at Sangat. And that time I was in an impression that I wish I was daughter or granddaughter of a big person like him, and then I could just fly for my profession. And I think it was just that immaturity or naivety. And over the years, I realized it's not the same. And of course, there are many more layers of society and your own knowledge and all. But what struck me more in my own career is looking through, how it affected me being woman, and also being in the same profession with the other half. uh, I had an impression that it is going to be extremely helpful, and I realized that it is not the same case. And of course, I'm not generalizing it. It happened in my case, and that really raised a lot of curiosity. Already, I was having a curiosity to really see what woman does, because I was hit right from my day one of my profession, and after graduation. But I think around 15 years, it was in my head what I that I wish to work on doing, and I love biographies. I will be honest on that. I'm always reading people's life. So that bringing it together, but I had to really change my course of profession, and I think I was already thinking that I should start looking at how other women do. And you rightly mentioned that it is also about knowing others. So it was kind of a reflection I was seeking from others' life, and also realizing this gap, whenever I used to go for my public speech, ask at the colleges, name five women architects, students had no names in their hands. And I used to get very, nervous and tell them, at least name your teachers,
Yeah.
because they are also architects. So this whole idea of limited perception of architects is those who built buildings, and that was for me the starting point, that I wish to redefine the way architecture profession looks. Because now, and I feel very comfortable, to be honest, when I have already interacted with more than 50 women. I feel that so many women have diverted, and I also feel very comfortable to say that we took risks in life, either by choice or by compulsion. It's a different thing. But we took risks in life and moved beyond this whole narrative of building buildings. And many women have moved to sustainability, to ecology, to activism, to journalism. I'm working and spending more time on water, for that matter. You are aware of it. And I think that is where I got more interested in some years ago, that, okay, architecture needs to be delimited by its definition, and architects also needs to be relooked very differently. Many of my own friends in water sector do not know that I have architecture background. Even many of my friends in architecture background do not know I have architecture background. And that makes it a very interesting thing. And now when I grew older, I give damn to all these things. I will be very honest. That's why I can spend time doing these interesting conversations. But I think when Madhavi Desai ma'am's book came out, and I read the book with a lot of interest. We were teaching together at Nirma that time. It became absolutely clear for me what I wish to do in my own writings. I was very clear. I would not like to focus on the architecture per se, because then again, I am limiting the definition of architecture. I wanted to delimit the definition of architecture and look at it as a built environment. And this is where a lot of women I have interacted, I see that they have delimited the definition themselves. They may not say it like that, but as a researcher, I can write and talk about it. And I was very clear that I want to focus on the life of women and not the architecture per se. Because as I mentioned, I mean, I was really head on and very clear by the time I was already 50, just approaching 50, sorry. And I was getting stubborn, as it happens with age, that I'm not going to really fall prey to the way architecture is defined. You know, uh, whether people consider me architect or not doesn't matter. But architecture is very limited in its definition, and that's what we do in our studio and colleges. So that helped me to conceptualize the project. That, okay, it's a genders project. It's not an architecture project. And then I was simultaneously working on water. So I looked at that sector as well, because that's also highly engineered perception, and now slowly moving to social science. So yeah, that was it. And then I'm already in this project for more than 4 years. You can imagine how slow it is. And as I mentioned, only 10% success rate. So one interview happens with nearly nine cancellations or nine no response or rescheduling, many a times rescheduling. And I understand. I mean, because the life of women is extremely busy. But what I always try to convey to most of the women is, if you think that this documentation is really not required, you have to really seriously rethink. The fact that women are not documenting and disseminating was my major finding in my early literature review. That we don't know about their work because they don't find it important. And by not documenting and disseminating their work, they are doing a huge injustice to the society and future girls. Because if I don't come to know that women can practice, women did this, women did that, as a young girl, I am not motivated, you know. And that is where I try to convince more and more people to take these interactions, or at least document, have your own website and disseminate, even if it is self promotion, which many of the women have told me that I don't want to do self promotion. And I say it's not self promotion, it's a learning and sharing. Because if you don't tell what you learned, and you don't tell what you have built or known or researched, how will people know it? How will people appreciate it, for that matter? It's not about getting awards, it's about contributing to let people know that women is doing this and women can do this, because this whole skepticism among the younger generation, and also for men to accept that women does this, and the young boys. That's why we have this last question to engender. Unless and until even men and boys have this acceptance that there are women bosses, there are women architects, there is an architecture beyond building. I think we are stuck at a situation where the profession is really not doing so well. You are aware of it. But anyway, I can go on this, but we have to call it off for the day. Thank you so much, Ophelia, and it's really nice to have you. I really look forward to having more interaction. I do recall that we met once in a conference, but I am heading to Trivandrum on 26th, so I do hope that we meet sometime very soon. And please take care of yourself and keep up the good work, I must say.